Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Take Two. I promised you I'd have Gerald back because we didn't have enough time to discuss his really interesting new role. Gerald, why don't you give a very short intro into yourself and particularly on your role? We spoke very at length about your role as the, community organizer, head of the ACE program, but today we really want to talk about your VP of Development and AI initiatives. So why don't you give us a little intro?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Mia, for having me back. I'm Gerald. I'm a product manager at the Oracle database for AI and developer initiatives, so developer and AI initiatives. That what that means is basically that I'm involved in functionality that we're building and projects that we have around making things easier for developers and also for the various different AI components that are now have emerged and seem to be on a steamroll. It's like every other week there's something new to do.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. What do you do every day? Like you go, you get a cup of coffee, and then what do you?
I start my day very simple, right? It's like everybody else, I think, right? You get a cup of coffee and start deleting emails at the first thing because I'm in the West Coast in the US, so it's like
there should be an AI agent for that, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, that would be great, actually. I haven't thought of that yet. No, I mean, what does the day-to-day life look like? That depends a little bit also on where we are in the release cycle, right? There's in the beginning of the release, you're very much at defining projects, getting requirements, etc. Throughout the release. Then you make sure that this happens. And towards the end of the release, you're focusing more on what we call field enablement, the customer enablement, so producing the collateral, making sure the doc is in shape and so forth. And of course, like with all of this, is like tomorrow something new can drop that changes the world or the potential of changes the world, and it mixes all of it up. Right?
Let us behind the curtain. When you think of AI and things behind the database and things that have dropped, what do you think the best kept secret is? What's the feature that people might not know you have, but that you think is one of the coolest things you guys have been delivering?
Okay, so I give you have to think about it to not get myself into trouble, but a couple of things. So it's like
you could do a few, yeah.
Yeah, like the database world when AI dropped was kind of looking towards vector search. Everybody wanted to now store vectors into distant search, etc. And by now everybody, and it's kind of a cool little thing. But what's actually really interesting right now, and you will see a lot more from Oracle, is not so much like, hey, I want to do a vector search inside the database or outside the database. There's a lot of value in doing it inside the database. I don't want to sound diminishing towards it. But actually much more interesting now has become, because everybody's using AI, it's like, what does the data mean and who should get access to? And I don't mean that vectors. I mean, like, here's an Oracle database with all your general ledgers, your sales, your employee records, your customer records. Does the AI even know what these table and column names mean? And B, who should be able to query this? And is not and who has queried it and what have they queried are even more interesting answers. And there's right now really not a good solution out there in the database space altogether. There's like point solutions here and there, but when you look closer, everybody's sort of kind of going like, yeah, I mean, that's your problem to figure out.
Not only that, do you know they changed the charter? There used to be like a ChatGPT charter saying that they need to protect and secure the data. And my husband looked, they took out the protect and secure. They took out the 3 words.
Yeah,
so my
exactly.
husband is like, what?
Yeah.
Because it used to say, to access the data, to this, the data, to that, the data, to protect and secure the data. And he says, now it says this, that, the other, and there's no word protect and secure. So it's definitely an area, I think, where people are not only not looking towards, but they're,
yeah, I mean,
disclaimering underneath that it's not their job, right?
Right. And, and security and innovation have always had the opposite directions, right? I mean, innovation is trying to move fast and as much as possible and, wild ideas. And security is for, what its day job is to make sure that we do this responsibly. And, I don't want ChatGPT to have my personal data out there on the internet for anybody to query, right? It's like there are privacy laws, there are privacy rights that we all have, and machines need to comply to that. And that's super interesting. And you will see very soon some functionality we're introducing for the security piece. And we also have just recently introduced functionality for essentially annotating your data model, so kind of giving more context back to the LLM of what this means. And this is more interesting for like when you look at long-lived applications and data models. And you and I have been around long enough that we know that
exactly
not everything is written 2 years ago. Like, you know, these data models sometimes have very cryptic names. Right? It's like the tables and the columns are usually very short because back then, like 20, 30 years ago, they could only store 30 characters or 10 characters or whatever. And that we have found that, you know, LLMs, when you ask them to interrogate the data to generate SQL, you know, they often get confused by it. And you can get it right if you prompted the right thing and say, no, you know, this table actually means sales, and, you know, query the C dot something column and this column and so forth. But it's cumbersome, and you have to do this over and over again as you lose your context.
That will be so valuable. I know, like at Oraplayer, we have a solution for invoice PO reconciliation. So we use AI to parse PDFs of invoices, purchase orders, etc. And like, you really had to teach the AI, like, you know, the word PO is the same as purchase order, is the same as purchase order entry, is the same as, right? Like, and if they see the logo and it's different than the company name, and et cetera, et cetera. So to have some sort of general way of having, like you said, some sort of metadata on the table, whatever else, would be such a game changer for those types of projects where people are trying to get, you know, to utilize the best of AI to do character recognition, document understanding, right? To translate this into like business value. Like, that's always my pet peeve about AI, that like everybody's talking about AI, and then I'm like, what are you doing with it? And they're like, oh, I say hello, you know, tell me the names of all the people. Like, you know, they have
exactly
kind of silly demos where you, like exactly what you said is vector search, right? They have a silly demo where they're talking to the database, and I'm like, what money is that saving you? What revenue is that bringing you? What business, you know, how are your employees benefiting, right? Like, so when you have these types of features, like you said, with like security or making it easier using metadata for AI to really understand and be able to communicate with the database, you know, those are going to be game changers from a business value perspective, right? So that's like I said, I'm very curious actually how Oracle does that balance between bringing value to the customers with business value, but also bringing, you know, cutting edge innovation. So is there like kind of two teams within Oracle, the old school versus the new school, millennials versus the...
No, not really. Actually, it's kind of interesting. Like we have a great balance of, you know, like most of the innovations that we're driving comes out of the same teams that, you know, like have built products or features in the database since forever. And, you know, like we employ a lot of smart people, and they don't stop thinking. They're not just like, yeah, my day job is just to fix this bug and, you know, maintain this piece of code. But, you know, like the you know, innovation versus business value, I mean, to some extent from a product management perspective, right? It's like the business value is what leads the innovation, right? It's like there's no point in innovating, doing something new that adds no value to anybody. I mean, sure, you can produce a feature that, I don't know, you can write a line now in a trace file in Oracle if you want to, but where's, you know, what's the innovation? What's the business value, right? And true innovation is truly something where we can now do things differently that we could do before, and that enables us to do ABC, and that directly drives business value, right? And so the balancing act between those two is not actually that big. The balancing act, or like there is no balancing act. It's like these innovations, you always like, what's the value? What are we trying to do? What we want the customer to do? What we're trying to enable the customer to do? And then how do we get there?
Do you do customer like roundtables where you bring in?
Oh yeah, we have customer advisory boards, right?
Yeah, you do. Okay,
we do
like,
that,
hey,
right?
you know, where do you think that these AI features can kind of move the needle for your organization?
Yeah, so like right now, right, we're asking customers left and right, it's like, what are your AI initiatives? And you know, like you see.
Do you get any good answers? Is everybody in POC?
Well, so yeah, there's a lot of that, right? It's like we do get a lot of, and we have to appreciate that we are not necessarily dealing with people that just running the lemonade shop or something, right? We're dealing with the top 2,000 S&P 2,000 customers. So like if you go to a bank or major airline or whatever, and you go like, well, what's your AI strategy? They will not tell you, well, we add a chatbot to the web page or whatever, right? You will have a lot more thought around it throughout the business. And like honestly, the answer often depends. It's like you're talking to regulated environments. The AI strategy is like, we have to figure out how this even fits, right, with all the regulatory requirements we have. They're usually the very slowest movers, right? If you talk more to the consumer market, well, they tend to have very little regulatory requirements or legislations. And they kind of in a very competitive market, because like if I don't get my customer to buy stuff from my website or mobile app or whatever,
quickly, right? They have a lot of user interface requirements.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like the customer experience, like that level is very important. We work a lot with manufacturers, and for them, like time is everything. They're like any second you could you could do anything, right? Like we're doing a lot of physical inventory counts and stuff like that with automation. They're like, every hour the plant is closed, we're losing X millions of dollars. So if our inventory counting takes 6 hours less, you've saved us, this much money. So it is very interesting to see how, we could take these buzzwords and turn them into like real value for customers. So to our final question, what impact do you hope your role has on the business, on Oracle, on customers? What's your grand design?
I mean, I'm really like first and foremost, and it's probably part of, hopefully I would think it's part of a product manager's job. Like I first and foremost want to bring value to the customer, right? And I think if I bring value to the customer, or Oracle brings value to the customer, that obviously in turn helps the business, right? Very naively speaking, like Oracle is here because we have products that make other businesses' lives easier. It started with database, with a lot of other products, right? It's like, if you don't get a customer, a company to say, yeah, I'm willing to give you money for this thing, it's like if they say, I'd rather invest my money into building it myself or hiring some people or whatever, then ultimately as a company, you will fail. So customer success is like what every company is about, right? It's like one way or another, whatever the customer is. And I see my role and my influence mostly, I sort of see myself really as partly the challenger of like the customer voice inside Oracle. I think that probably describes it best, right? So like, yeah, we can build a lot of cool things, right? It's like there's a lot of technology, especially with AI now. Everybody has, like everybody in the whole industry, everybody has an AI initiative, right?
Right.
A really hard question is always like, so what? Right.
Right.
So
what's in it for me?
Right. Exactly. Right. And and if you cannot articulate what this will change, and this doesn't have to be necessarily even revolutionary, right? So it's like a lot of things that we have done, and I'm very fond of also time savers. I call them time savers. Stuff we should have fixed many years ago, should have put out years ago. Often it's tiny little things that actually make the biggest leap for customers, right? When you go like, oh, thank God I don't have to. As you said before, it's like my inventory report. If you tune it from 6 hours to 30 minutes, that doesn't take 5 years of engineering, etc. Maybe you just needed to tune that report query.
It took 10 years of approvals. 10 years. I'm not kidding. So I think there is going to be this kind of middle ground where we are now, where like people did the POC of the cool thing. They saw it. They said, so what? Now they're kind of going back to the drawing board, maybe back to Oracle and saying, okay, like, that's cute, but like, how am I gonna get ROI from this type of project? So that's how I see the ACE, right? Like myself as an ACE or whatever, is to really help people figure out, like, Oracle's giving you this set of tools, right? You have Lego on the floor, but like, what are you building with it? And helping people try to see, hey, other customers have built these cool things with Lego. right? Which are best practices and problems that almost everybody has who has the same base system, right? If you have Oracle EBS manufacturing, you're probably having the same problem as this other company. But also to try to guide them through like the AI, we call it all inclusive, because everything's AI. It's like vector, machine learning, natural language processing. I mean, they don't even know. But thank you so much. Like you said, it's for you to be that voice for the customer, making sure that Oracle keeps their eye on the prize of making sure that customers really can implement and understand. And yeah, it's great that they have this capability of having a team like yours really work on fine-tuning the product with customers in mind. So thanks again for joining me once again.
Thanks for having me
on our Take Two with Gerald. And thanks everybody for joining me. And of course, you subscribe or like below. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.